Hello, everyone. This is Bill Gustin. I'm a captain with Miami-Dade Fire Department, Southeast Florida. And welcome to this month's Humpday Hangout. Our topic will be avoiding cancer, both on a personal level and as an organizational level, taking a look at what our departments are doing to avoid the contaminants that we now know cause cancer. And before we begin our discussion today, we're coming to you with kind of heavy hearts. Our hopes and prayers, our thoughts and prayers are going to our brothers and sisters in Kansas City, Missouri. We lost 2 brother firefighters just recently. And when it happens, we're all an extended family. And we all share in that hurt and that grief. And so our thoughts and prayers to our brothers and sisters in Kansas City. And it just goes to show you that we can always strive to make this job safer. We're never going to make it completely safe. And part of this job is accepting that there are going to be some risks. We will strive to reduce those risks, but unfortunately, when we raise our right hand, whether we're career firefighters or volunteers, we have to accept the fact that this is a dangerous business and that the public is expecting us to protect them. And speaking of protecting the public, God bless those firefighters in Kansas City. They made at least 2 rescues that I know of right before this building collapse. They were doing what they were trained and swore to do, what they were equipped to do. You know, and something that the public doesn't understand, and right now it's very fashionable to bash public employees. They don't really understand what we do. They see us riding up and down the road burning diesel fuel and making a lot of noise and going to medical calls, and maybe they see us in the grocery store. They don't understand that we're not getting paid to do what we do on a day-to-day basis. We are getting paid to do what we are trained to do, what we are equipped to do with literally millions of dollars of apparatus and equipment. But most importantly, it's what we're willing to do. And unlike many other occupations, we are willing to give our life if that's what is necessary to protect the citizens of the people that we swore to protect. So our hopes, our thoughts, and our prayers go out to the folks in Kansas City. I want to thank our sponsor, Key Hose. You can get their information at keyfire.com. That's an easy endorsement for me. I believe truly that the hose sells itself. If you're considering equipping your department or your company with new hose, try Key. Try it. Don't just try it in a parking lot standing up. Get down, get on your hands and knees, go around corners, go upstairs, work it into tight places, try to kink it. Later on in this hangout, we'll talk about some friction loss that's pretty impressive for that type of hose. But having said that, we have a very special guest with us today, Brian. If you will go ahead and make your introduction. And again, thanks for being on at such short notice. Go ahead, Brian. Introduce yourself, please.
Well, good afternoon or good morning at the West Coast over here. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be amongst some of the most poignant and prominent leaders in the fire service. My name is Brian Frieders, and I am the president of the Firefighter Cancer Support Network. As probably most of you have heard, we're a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to assisting firefighters and their immediate families that get diagnosed with cancer through what we call a toolbox program and our mentor program. We've been around for 10 years. This year we celebrate our 10th year of service. When someone's diagnosed, because cancer is such an epidemic in the fire service now, we come alongside of them and try to make their journey much more palatable. And in the true spirit of the brother and sisterhood of the fire service, we want to do what we can and do our part to make sure that their journey to survivorship is indeed somewhat more comforting. You know, Bobby, thank you very much again for your support, all of you, Fairfax County. I'm looking at some of the people on this hangout, and I'm realizing that at some point in time, we've all probably interacted with either myself or your organization, and it's just really a pleasure to see the fire service making an incredible change about cancer awareness and doing things that are making us much more safer and reducing our risk of cancer. So thanks a lot for having me here, and I'm looking forward to joining you for this.
Hey, Brian, why don't Why don't you mention the gala real quick and fill people in so we get that so people know about it?
Sure. Okay. As I said, this is our 10th year. We're celebrating our 10th year. We have a gala event each year that is our fundraising event. It's November 7th at the Westin Bonaventure Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. We've got John Waite playing. I don't know if you remember John Waite from the 80s. He had a hit song called Missing You. I'm probably dating myself. Bill, you'll know. We're hoping to see everybody there. We've got a great venue. The theme of the gala this year is a celebration of survivors. We have about 30 or 40 survivors coming in from all over the country that are being sponsored by their locals, and it's all about them. And that's what we want to celebrate, is the success that we've had in helping them.
Bobby, you probably don't need an introduction, but do you have a few words for us?
Yeah, just two real quick things. Particularly on the tragedy in Kansas City. It's high time that we, as a fire service, do a better job of reviewing these events, not to find fault or lay blame, not to accuse people of having not seen what they didn't see or not doing what they didn't do, which is called counterfactual reasoning and absolutely useless in educating or enlightening anyone as to what happened. But rather, let's take this opportunity to do a good review of this event and honor those who lost their lives, those two brave firefighters, a 17-year veteran and a 15-year veteran, who were doing normal work, who did in fact save two civilians moments before the collapse, who are being supervised by some of the most proficient, educated, and highly trained firefighters in the world, who are being led by some of the most dedicated, eloquent, and sophisticated firefighters in the world, and who are doing work that is dynamically complex, that pits us against the forces of nature, construction, time, resources, energy, with conflicting goals and conflicting priorities, and a million different variables that can make every situation have a million different outcomes. And let's enjoin some of the leading thought people on investigations today. Let's get Dr. Woods and Dr. Decker, and let's get all of the people involved there. Let's get Sean, who will be joining us at FDIC. He has a Swedish last name, and I'd butcher it, so I apologize up front. But let's get those people to help us to learn from this event, and let us help the Kansas City Fire Department, all the family and friends of those two brave heroes, to heal in a way that's meaningful, in a way that's beneficial. And to all of those armchair quarterbacks that I've seen out there online the last few days who didn't even bother to read the report, in many instances, please hold your criticism for your own fires. Please hold your vitriolic rants for your own benefit, because they do little to move forward this great cause that we've endeavored to participate in, both in the career and volunteer side of the fire service. And let's respect those two men and their memory, and let's dedicate ourselves to doing a better job of learning from the great sacrifice they've laid on the altar of service to this country and to their community. And to those of us who are attending the gala, I look forward to seeing you there. I've tried to attend as many as I can. I will be there. Brian's going to be driving Miss Daisy, so he'll be bringing me to the event. And I hope to see as many folks as we can get from the Southern California, Mid-California, Northern California area, Nevada, Arizona. You know, we really love to sell this thing out, and hopefully we can get lots of good folks to participate and do more to fight cancer. Cancer sucks.
Bobby, I don't think that there's a person participating right now that hasn't been touched by cancer. Either they've had it themselves or they've lost a co-worker on this job. I know my department, it's frightening. It's not a matter of if somebody's going to get cancer. It's when the next when it's going to happen to the next one. And it's not just the guys that are on duty. It's not. It's the guys that it might be 7, 8 years, 10 years down the road after they've taken their pension, and that's when cancer rears its ugly head. Clark, could you go ahead and make your introduction?
Hello, everyone. Again, we're from the West Coast, Clark County Fire Department, Las Vegas area. I'm Clark Lamping. I'm a captain at Firehouse 11, which is right on Las Vegas Boulevard. If you've ever been to Vegas, I'm on the south side of the Strip, right next to the Mandalay Bay. I'm taking a temporary assignment in the training division, so I'm sitting behind a desk right now, watching fire engines drive by my office window and wave to them as they go by, because this ride in a desk chair is not as fun as I would have hoped. But I'm happy to be here today. I'm just excited about this conversation. Anything that we can do as an organization, as myself as an individual, to get some information out there and possibly help some brothers identify and get in touch with the appropriate people to help themselves overcome cancer. I'm happy to be here and happy to do it.
Real good. Dan, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again. Dan Shaw. I'm a battalion chief in Fairfax County, Virginia, currently assigned to the mighty 4th Battalion. And, you know, I think, as all of you guys have said, is cancer is very prevalent. And I look at the report that came out of the chief's office, the Firefighter Cancer Network, and I thought one of the first sentences I saw there really is kind of a pivotal part of what we're talking about in cancer, is that we never understood the horrific magnitude of the problem or how naive we were. So I'm looking forward to a great conversation and really looking at how we can kind of change this trend for our future generation of firefighters, and hopefully the generation of firefighters who are still fighting fire today.
Real good, Dan. Daryl, please.
Hi, I'm Daryl Liggins. I'm a captain, newly promoted captain in the city of Oakland, California. It's my 23rd year in the fire service. They congratulated me not just by giving me bugles, but sending me to our busiest engine in the city. So I'm just down the street from the Oakland Coliseum where the Raiders, Oakland A's, and the Warriors play. It's a fun, busy district. And as Dan was saying, he used the word magnitude. Before this podcast, when I'm thinking about cancer, it really is a problem that is of great magnitude. I don't know anyone that doesn't know someone in the fire service or someone on a personal level that's had cancer themselves or been touched by cancer. We don't all know someone that maybe passed away in a building collapse or burned in a fire, but we all know someone that's been dealing with this problem of cancer, and it really needs to be dealt with, because, as you said, cancer sucks, and it's something that isn't, okay to have, and it's something that doing some very simple things we'll learn today and talk about, we can help prevent.
Well, thanks, Daryl. And Captain Mike?
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Mike Dugan. I'm a retired captain from the New York City Fire Department. I did 27 years in New York City, and this topic is near and dear to me. I just 2 days ago found out another good friend of mine is diagnosed with cancer and going to be going through treatment for tongue cancer that was picked up by a dentist. And 9/11 guy and everything else, and it's crazy the number of people getting cancer. So because our hangouts are based on the fireground, hopefully today we're going to be talking about ways that you can help yourself after a job to protect yourself and the brothers and sisters. When I started in this industry, when we first got bunker gear in the 90s in the FDNY, I remember guys would bring it up to their bunk rooms. I used to bring it up as a covering officer up to my bunk room so I could get into my bunker gear. Well, now I find out that it's off-gassing and I'm sleeping right next to known carcinogens. This is something that we have to talk about, that we have to bring to light, bringing it in the kitchen, bringing your bunker gear in the kitchen, and there are a lot of places that still do it. Okay, if you are wearing your bunker gear in the kitchen and making your meals and you are now putting those carcinogens in your food and ingesting them, you're going to have a problem down the road. And there are way too many of us getting sick. And if you know anybody who has cancer, you know cancer sucks. And fighting cancer, chemotherapy, even though we have to do it, chemo is poison, okay, because it's killing the cancer, but it's also hurting you. We want to avoid this.
Thanks, Mike. Again, the topic is going to be two topics in a general sense. Is what are we doing personally to avoid the contaminants that we now know cause cancer down the road, job-related, and also what is our department doing as an organization to prevent some of this contamination. I'm going to begin the discussion by saying that I've got 42 years in the fire service, and I'm scared to death. I am a ticking time bomb because I've been doing so many things so wrong. And Mike, I don't want to speak for you, but we're the two oldest guys here with the most time on the job. Knowing what we know now, Mike, how many mistakes we made. It wasn't our fault. We didn't know it. Maybe it's too late for us now. But as far as wearing the contaminated gear, taking the breathing apparatus face piece off at the first opportunity as soon as we could take the smoke. I never wore a mask on a car fire, and now we're finding out that when cars burn, it produces a witch's brew of toxins. So even an old dinosaur like me, on a personal note, needs to literally clean up my act, decontaminate the protective clothing, don't bring it in the firehouse, clean our skin. The incidence of testicular cancer in my job is off the chart, and I just feel, as a personal note, working in a very hot, tropical, humid climate, I think it has something to do with our pores are open all the time, we're sweating, and we're absorbing these toxins into our skin. As a department, we're on the cutting edge. I'm very proud to say that our department is participating in a study along with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue and the University of Miami Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center in looking at some of the toxins, how firefighters are absorbing them or ingesting them, inhaling them, and what we can do to avoid some of these contaminants. We have a grant. It's rather generous, and I'm very proud to be on a department that's participating. Are we up to the point yet where everybody has 2 sets of bunker gear? No, but I'm going to play my own Dutch uncle here. We have guys, we're required once a year to send our bunker gear into a professional company that cleans our gear and mends it, and they do an absolute fantastic job. And as a captain, it is like pulling teeth to get these guys to tag and bag their gear and turn it in so it can be cleaned and refurbished. And it is an uphill battle. So anyway, that's my story. Brian, can you tell us what we're doing on the West Coast?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've really embraced is just what you're talking about, is the second set of turnout equipment for everybody and every member. It's been a challenge, obviously, because it's a pretty significant capital outlay, but for the most part, West Coast departments all do have a second set of bunker gear. The cleaning and maintenance is another big issue. We have policies in place in our geographical region that require someone to have their bunker gear cleaned after significant incidents or 6 months, whichever comes first. Another big campaign that you've heard going around the country is the Wash Your Hood Sunday. And I'm not sure I ever washed my hood, you know, and, no, like you say, none of us ever realized that, 20 years ago when I came on the job, we didn't even think about that. Helmet liners, hoods, we never thought about washing those. Maybe we'd wash our turnouts, but even then, that was sort of this perceived badge of courage. So we've really tried to change the company officer's role in the leadership role that comes with it in keeping people safe by making them and demanding and ordering them to get their bunker gear clean. And when someone shows up with dirty gear, we're looking at them like, what are you doing, man? What's wrong with you? So that's sort of the attitude that's changing on the West Coast finally.
Brian, you're going to find this amusing, or interesting, I should say. I actually know a department that has switched. In our hot climate, most of us, black bunker gear is the exception rather than the rule. A most of us wear a tan or, the PB on.
Mhm.
And we actually have a department now that has switched to black bunker gear because the guys, that's a badge of courage to have sooty, dirty bunker gear. And when you have the black gear, it doesn't matter. The dirt doesn't show. So guys, they think that fellas would be more apt to clean their gear if it's black rather than walk around with dirty bunker gear as a badge of courage.
Yeah, that's sort of a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, and I think all of this stuff is so intermingled because the washing your hoods, the second set of gear, and all of these things. I mean, there are now places where after a good job, an interior fire attack, they are requiring members to bag their gear and get a second set of gear when they go back to the firehouse, and everything is going to be decontaminated. They're going to allow it in an extractor to be off-gassed, and they're going to allow all of the contaminants to be removed, which is really pretty smart because, again, we think about certain things, and we wouldn't do them if we knew they were going to cause cancer. You look at some of the hazmat things. Would you go into a hazmat situation without any protection, without a level A suit, without whatever was the required protection in a chemical? And everybody go, no, you'd be nuts. Like the old days where the guy tasted it off the train or whatever. Nobody would do that now. But we're still going to allow the gear to go in there. And one of the questions we got is about, what about a volunteer department that has a small volunteer department that doesn't have money to get a second set of gear? What a lot of places are doing is on a county-wide basis, they are buying a cache of gear. So they have a second set of gear that's available in a township, in a municipality, where now you can go there and say, okay, I need for the 8 guys who are at the fire, I need 2 pairs of 36 bunker pants, I need a pair of 38s, I need whatever, I need a couple of jackets. And you can also use some of the grant money that's available to get second sets of gears for these guys. These are all things that we can do to work this out. So, again, washing your hoods. I used to remember when I first came on the job, nobody was even allowed to wear a hood, and I was yelled at for wearing a mask at an oil burner fire. Kid, only sissies wear masks at oil burner fires. And you're like, what? And I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the people who told me this stuff have died horrible deaths. So, again, you think about the risks, and the risks aren't short-term. They're long-term risks. And you think about what's going on here, and it's very, very important that we understand them. And the other thing, just so everybody knows, if you have a question for the group, the hashtag is FETalks. Send a question to hashtag FETalks, and we will see if we can get to your question.
And if I could add just one minor point to the conversation, is that because we know what we know today and we understand it so much better, we often look back with a jointous eye as to the behaviors that happened in the past. Case in point, when my dad flew in World War II, they used to give all the pilots 2 packs of cigarettes every day to calm them down. They had no idea that how carcinogenic cigarettes were at that time. And my dad died from lung cancer at the age of 55. But he didn't sue the Air Force or the Army Air Corps, and he didn't hold anybody accountable for it because the knowledge base wasn't there. I think for us as survivors and firefighters and people, we need to focus on educating as many folks as we can, and I think we do better to praise the good work that's happening now from the people who are using this knowledge, rather than throwing stones at those who didn't know they were making mistakes. So I don't know. Just my thoughts.
Bobby, and I feel bad that whether we want to be mentors, we do lead by example, and we are senior guys on this job, and the young guys do look up to us, and what we say. If we do something different than what we say, we're setting a bad example. And I readily admit, I've set a lousy example. Lousy example. I'm looking at that hashtag about the New York telephone switching facility fire that occurred in Manhattan. And Mike, you would know a lot better than I would. How many? I understand they just had the 30th, 40th anniversary of that. I heard it from Danny Noonan. 50, 40th. Heard from Danny Noonan because he went to the reunion. But Mike, could you speak on that? How many firefighters have died of cancer, either directly or remotely, because of that incident?
Over 80%. I think it could be up as high as 90%. Before the World Trade Center, the New York City Fire Department, we used to have medical folders, and you'd go down to the medical office and you'd get a folder with your medical stuff. If you were at the phone company fire, you had a black star on your folder, and it was called the Black Star of Death. Okay, because so many guys died, and it was stamped on your folder. Now it's 9/11 is stamped on your folder. They know that you responded, you were there either as at the initial job or during the rescue and recovery operations. But you have the WTC stamp on your stuff now. We don't have the folders anymore. We've got a little bit into the new, we're not so far in the Stone Age, but the guys, the toxicity of the wire coverings, and it was a switching facility in Manhattan. The black smoke that came out of there, and the number of people that have died, it's in the, I think it's in the 80 percentile range right now, and still going up. There are guys who had like very, very weird cancers that had never been heard of before from all of the carcinogens in this stuff. And again, the scary thing about it, because we're talking about the fire ground, is now you get back on a fire truck wearing that gear, okay, and the next guy that comes on a fire truck after you, even though he wasn't at that fire, is sitting in the same thing, breathing that air that's inside that fire truck. You bring it back to the firehouse, and you wear your bunker pants, and this was before bunker gear, but this were their coats, but you wear your bunker pants in the kitchen, or you take your bunker pants up into the dormitory, or you take them up into anywhere else in the firehouse, and you don't get them cleaned. They're off-gassing for a period of time, and depends on the amount, the concentration of the smoke that they were subjected to, and how long you were in it, but for how long they are giving off those gases, those chemicals. But the off-gassing is done in terms of hours, how long it's giving off these carcinogens. So it's a big, big issue for us.
You know, I think of how many calls that we all go to where there's a report of smoke in somebody's residence. And when we get there, ma'am, I don't smell anything. She says, oh, now it's really strong. This odor is really strong. Well, it's us. We brought the odor into their house. We're just about halfway through, Mike, and I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Key Hose, and that is keyfire.com. It's a hearty endorsement, easy endorsement for me. This is what we use. We'll be using it at our conferences where Clark and I and Daryl will be participating in Las Vegas, and again, it'll be the exclusive supplier for hose for our high-rise conference in Pensacola as well. The hose sells itself. There's no better hose in terms of durability, of flow capabilities, in terms of low friction loss, and you have to really try to kink this hose. It's remarkable. Just some facts and figures. We ran some flow tests the other days. At our 1 3/4 Key Combat Ready, you've got a friction loss of 25 psi per 100 feet of hose at 185 gallons a minute. At 200 gallons a minute, it's 30 psi. The 2-inch hose with the 1.5-inch couplings that a lot of departments, I think LA City, I know the city of Orlando is using it. I don't know that they're using Key but they are using 2.5-inch hose with 2.5-inch couplings. You're getting flows of 200 gallons a minute at 25 pounds friction loss and 250 gallons a minute at 30 pounds friction loss. That's remarkable, considering the durability of the hose and also the fact that it's very, very kink resistant. So I encourage you, if you're looking for new fire hose, try Key along with some other brands, but the hose will sell itself. Along with it, yes, sir?
If I could add on to that, Bill, if you're ever in Dothan, Alabama, and you have the opportunity, go visit their facility. It's a state-of-the-art facility. They're very welcoming. They'll give you a great tour. Wonderful, wonderful group of people. And also, for those of you who are interested in continuing your education about what Michael was talking about, if you take out your September edition of the I believe this is a Fire Engineering magazine. If you've heard of that magazine, it's a Fire Engineering magazine.
Yes.
Apparently, it's a firefighter publication.
Yes.
That there's an article on page 55 on off-gassing contaminants from firefighters' personal protective equipment. It was written by Dr. Galvin Horn, Kenny Fent from the NIOSH, Dr. Catherine Kirk, and Michael Logan. And it's a fascinating article. It gives you all the facts. So if you need to talk to your crews, or you need to talk to your bosses, or you need to talk to your city council, it's always better to go in and say, this is real. This is a real threat. And if I could just, before we hear from Daryl and the rest of the guys, I really believe that in this short future, and I heard people saying we wash our gear twice a year, 3 times a year. That's all fine. In the future, what I want and what I'm going to be pushing for, because I don't want to see anybody get sick ever again unnecessarily. After every fire, your gear should be bagged and tagged, and it should be immediately taken, and you should be issued a fresh set of gear. And maybe we'll just have gear assigned to every rig. Maybe we won't have our own gear anymore. Maybe we'll have 3 or 4 sets. But 2 sets doesn't cut it in a lot of communities. And so I think that our gear needs to be cleaned after every event. And we shouldn't wear dirty gear back into the rig. We should change out on scene and get into some kind of other type of gear. We shouldn't be wearing our bunker gear that's dirty to car accidents. We shouldn't be wearing it on medical calls. From this point forward, we should be wearing rescue gear, whatever you want to call it. There's many great manufacturers, Globe, TechGen, wonderful people out there. There used to be Fire Decks. They make gear that's not structural gear, but it's for everything else we do. When we go down range to fight a fire, put your plates on, put your bunker gear on, wear it then. If you can't get it decontaminated after every event, especially if you can't get it currently decontaminated after every event. But I'm hoping that in the near future, that becomes something that we say, just like we say today they didn't wear their air pack, we'll say, I can't believe anybody would put on dirty gear. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, that's going to begin, because I just saw this note come up about recruits. Our department is doing a great job. And I also I teach for Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, and I know they're doing a fine job. If Captain Lamping is in training, and I know one of the reasons he's in training, if you want to affect change in your department, that's where to do it. That's with the younger generation of recruits that are coming on. That's how we affect change, with those folks. And I know that my department is educating our young people. They will directly benefit from some of the mistakes that some of our older guys have made, so they don't make the same mistakes. Clark, if you could talk about some of the things that your department is doing in terms of avoiding these contaminants.
Yes, thanks, Captain Gustin. In Clark County, we're fairly large, over 650 firefighters, so we're a fairly large agency. We do not have spare gear. We do not have 2 sets of gear for everybody. We do have a contract with a cleaning facility that says we are required to clean our gear once a year, but if the firefighters are involved in a structure fire that they feel they need to get their gear clean, they are allowed to go down there and pick up. We have reserve gear. All right, we can go and get some reserve gear, and you will change your gear, and they will wash your gear anytime you want as a firefighter. Again, that's back to the personal responsibility. At some point in time, we can't rely on our agency to take care of our cleaning and health 100%. We have to take some responsibility for our own actions. Now, one thing that my agency does do that I'm pretty proud of is we realize we don't have the money to buy 2 sets of gear for everybody, but we've done the research and we've realized the toxicity of the hoods and the thyroid and the lymph nodes right here is one of the major problems. So my agency went and we bought 600 flash hoods, and I've got the numbers here. We've got a deal on them, $23 per flash hood. All right, 600 flash hoods, and we carry these hoods. Whoever's driving our air resource, the air resource gets dispatched on confirmed working fires, and they also have coolers of water and Gatorade and things like that, so that's kind of like the rehab air resource. He shows up and he has a bag of clean hoods. Every firefighter comes out of that fire when they're done, they take their hood off and they get a fresh, cleaned hood right there. All those hoods that come off the fire ground are bagged, sealed, put back on the back of the rig, not where the driver is, it's in the back of the rig, and those hoods are taken to our facility, the same facility that cleans our other gear, and we've got a deal worked out with them. They wash our hoods for free. Free washing of the hoods, and it's a one-day turnaround. So that's something my agency has done that we're pretty proud of. It's pretty forward-thinking. Again, we're doing what we can. And as far as the personal responsibility goes, hey, if I'm the captain in the rig, and these guys behind me, they're dirty, they're poisoning me. So at some point we have to say, hey, get out, wash that gear. We have gross decontamination procedures. When you come out of the fire, we have everyone on the rig now has baby wipes. So you're required to wash your face, wash your hood, wash your neck, wash everything, baby wipes, gross decon your equipment, get it off, wash it right there, wash your hands, and then get back to the station and take a shower right away. All right? Again, at some point we have to take responsibility for our own health and safety. And I don't know, this $23 a hood, I don't know what brand name that is, but some of the volunteers are sending notes and saying, what do we do if we don't have that kind of money? Hey, $23, $33, buy your own hoods, guys. Have a couple of hoods, and as soon as you're done with that fire, take it off, put it in a 5-gallon bucket behind the station, wash it out, keep washing that hood out until that water runs clean. First couple times you wash that hood, it's going to be gray water. Dump it and continue to wash it, but make sure you have a fresh hood. If that's the least you can do, make sure you have a fresh hood.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And Dan, you're with Fairfax County. It's a very impressive department. What is your department? What are you doing on a personal note? And then what's your department doing as an organization?
Well, and much like what you were saying earlier, I mean, obviously I don't have nearly as many years as service as you do, but when I came in the fire service, I mean, I started smoking because I thought that's what everyone did. I mean, it's what all my peers did. And then I was fortunate enough to get hired by Fairfax, and I'll always be the greatest cheerleader for my organization. And I mean, part of it is of the policies they have in place. If you were hired after March 1984, you had to sign a contract that you will not smoke at all. If you do, on or off duty, you'll be fired because of our presumptive lung or our presumptive cancer legislation we have in place. And then since June of 1998, you have to sign a contract you will do absolutely no tobacco. So no chewless tobacco, no smoking. And again, if you are caught with it, you're fired. And that really goes back to cover our employees, because if you get any one of the 7 prominent cancers, then they can trace it back to your job, and you don't have to worry about that facet of when you get cancer of worrying about your occupation. Now, along with my job, I see this benefit all the time, and I wish every department could have it. But every fire I go to, I get 2 safety officers. They're there not only for that sole fact of walk around and make sure that we keep the incident as safe as possible, but myself, the EMS supervisor, the safety officers, all have fire wipes in our rigs that we give to all the guys when they come out. After every fire, we have a tailboard critique where we're the company officers, and one of the things we go through, we talk about the tactics and just a quick critique of the incident. But the last thing we talk about in each one of those is make sure you decon your gear as soon as you get back to the firehouse, because we outfit every firefighter with 2 sets of gear. And a standard protocol is if you get your stuff in your working fire, switch your gear, we get it clean. Every guy's on a cleaning cycle, and there's no consternation about it. The guys know it comes out in a general order. It directs them to it 3 months in advance. They know when to put their gear out. They put it out. It's like clockwork. We've conditioned the behavior that we don't really get that anymore. The other part of that is I'm very fortunate we have our own occupational health center. So we have our own industrial physicians, and I would tell you every year my physical is about 4 hours long. And they are phenomenal. They are there for us for anything we want, we need, always looking after us. And they know our trade, which is fantastic. I can't tell you how many times as a chief when I have a guy come back from injury or such, and their primary care physician will release them, nah, you need to go see our doc, because our doc knows what you're going to do in our job. And I think our doctors have done a phenomenal job of increasing the longevity of our personnel, because they know the rigors of our job, and they're doing that due diligence and make sure they're taken care of. All those things coupled with a recent study that unfortunately due to the budget we had to stop, but the initial data was phenomenal, was that our hazmat unit responded on every line or every working fire we had. They would come in priority 2, and their main job was when they would arrive at a working fire, if we did indeed have a working fire, they would go swab the first truck and the first engine's gear. And they were accumulating all this data. And unfortunately, they didn't get a full study, so I guess from a scientific aspect, you could say it's a bit flawed. But what they found is that the initial truck had what you expect, that richest pot of all these chemicals, benzene, everything on their gear. But they found the engine company wasn't that great. But what we did find is that because the engine company is typically wet, because they're spraying a hose line, it was wet on their gear. But when they took their gear back and either hung it in the firehouse or put it in a bag, 24, 48 hours later, then it would start to off-gas, benzene, all these other different chemicals that are, multiple syllables and really bad for you. And it was really eye-opening that we think like, oh, well, I'm on the engine company, I'm spraying a hose line, that, it's water, it's rinsing it off. And that's not the case. And we know that, absolutely, cancer does not discriminate, doesn't care if you're short, tall, paid, volunteer, could care less. And what I found really striking is all these benefits I have from my department, between every firehouse having an exhaust system, so we're taking care of that, a second set of gear, really providing for our personnel, that I see 2 things. Is one, recruits that come out nowadays that we have, if I told them to go fight a dumpster fire or a car fire without a mask, they would think I was crazy. They have been conditioned that they see smoke, they put a mask on. It seems so common sense. Why would I walk in smoke without a mask on? So I see success in that, and that we've been able to accomplish that. But the other part I see is that all the things that we have, which do have a huge fiscal impact, I look back at the document from the Chiefs group with the Cancer Network, and this last sheet that has, what can I do? And I looked through this, and I put a dollar value next to all 11 of them, and the most expensive thing is baby wipes. Every single one of these other things you can do for free that will stop, or increase the ability for you to prevent getting cancer. And I think what is often overlooked, and we're seeing it now with a lot of our retirees, unfortunately not getting the ability to collect their pension and have a long retirement, is it's not just the firefighter, but, and I see it in the social media where a lot of people are talking about the struggle they're going through, is you see the struggle and the impact it has on the family. The fire service family, the guys in the firehouse, but also their loved ones at home, who now, they finally get their husband, their father, their mother, their sister back home after retirement, no more shift work, and now they're decimated by cancer. And they have to care for the person who was really like the foundation of the family. And so we can never discount that. I always, say, I think it was Peter Van Dorp always was talking about one of his talks with why guys didn't wear a seatbelt, and I thought it was such a simplistic statement, but he said, you just ask the person to write down why you didn't wear a seatbelt, because I have no idea what to tell your family when you're dead. And it's a perfect example to go back to someone and tell them, if you don't want to wear your mask, just go ahead and write it down for me, because I have no idea what to say in your eulogy or why you didn't wear it.
Brian, we're getting some questions from folks from some smaller departments with limited budgets. What can the Cancer Support Network do for the smaller departments?
Yeah, the smaller departments, that's a real challenge. Obviously with smaller agencies, the frequency of fires obviously is probably much lower, but there are some grant monies that are available, although they're getting a little more challenging to get. But I think what Dan just said it resonates with me, and it's the message we're sending out, is most of the things, if not all of them, with perhaps the exception of the second set of bunker gear, are no-cost items. Advocation for diesel exhaust capture systems. Advocating, how much does a bag of baby wipes or rescue wipes cost? $5? Turnout gear maintenance programs are are much cheaper than they were even 2 years ago. It is not a significant cost encumbrance for smaller agencies to have their gear. When you talk about cancer prevention on a global level, people think there's an incredible amount of money that has to be spent in order to accomplish that, and it's not the case. 10 out of the 11 initiatives that we publish in our white paper have no cost attached to them. They're cultural changes, they're leadership changes, they're that's really what it accomplishes, this awareness. And I was talking to Bobby about this. I am so impressed to listen to this conversation, because what it tells me is on everybody's radar. And where Make-Station validates all the Cancer Support Network with the help of all of you to get this message out. People are listening. Things are changing. That's a big win for everybody, and it's a big win for the fire service.
Okay, before we adjourn for the day, Brian, I do want to, if you could hold up the web page or your email address so that folks can access the information that your group provides. Well, we have got to hear from our newly promoted captain from Oakland, California, which again is I think is a suburb of San Francisco. And were you paid or volunteer? I can't remember there, Daryl, but Oakland, California, yes. Daryl, if you could speak a little bit about what you're doing on a personal level, and again, congratulations on your promotion to captain. You're very qualified and deserving. God bless you. And no, I'm not insulting you, for God's sake. It's insulting.
Yeah, thank you. I've been listening to everybody have a lot of good impact or input into the conversation. In my city, I thought we have a lot to improve on to prevent cancer, but the rate that we've lost retired members is really touching a lot of people, and it's apparent it's a big problem. I think most of the responsibility has to be at a personal level. I mean, it absolutely makes me boggle my mind when I see people doing things that they know are cancer-causing habits, such as smoking cigarettes and cigars. Our nutrition plays a huge part in these things. And so there has to be some personal responsibility. The department also has to take a role. I'm actually shocked how many people I'm hearing don't have a second set of gear. I feel like it's negligent for a department to not offer or provide the second set of turnouts, hood, gloves, boots to firefighters. So saying it's a budget problem is just not acceptable to me. We put extractors at not all the firehouses, because we obviously have some old firehouses, but they're basically commercial washing machines. And I'm proud to say that we have a culture that washes their gear after each fire. I think people are beyond wanting dirty gear. We all know we're going to fires, and so people wash their gear regularly. The department does have a second set of gear for everyone. And so that's good. The wet wipe thing is kind of new. I really like it. For the people listening in that haven't heard that before, it makes a lot of sense. It's not an alternative to a shower, but wearing the mask is important. But as Chief Frieders knows, that a lot of the stuff is absorbed through the skin. So if you could just wipe off your face and arms and some exposed skin before you could get back to the firehouse and then properly take a shower, you can get some of that stuff off of your skin. One thing I do, it's not in our culture to take a rehab period after a fire or whatever, but after a good interior job where we did some work, it had always been that you just go back in service. And next thing you know, you're going to a medical with that stuff on, and then they want to go to a coffee shop with this stuff on. So I just say, hey, we're getting back to the firehouse. We're not going to waste time, but get your other set of gear, take a quick shower, and then get back in service. So I think taking some time after a job and getting your stuff clean and yourself clean is really going to help. I have to say, I just touched on nutrition. We really need to look at the culture of how we, in the fire service, a lot of meat and potatoes crowd, and there's a lot of documentation that the foods that we're eating can play a huge part in getting or preventing cancer. So the China study is a book that's real popular. There's a documentary, Forks Over Knives. It's something that we're not all going to do 100%, but we can really make an improvement in helping prevent that from ever happening. Other than that, just think that the statistics are scary. I was listening to a podcast with Brian and a coworker of mine, and you were saying 1 out of 3 firefighters in their career can get cancer. Is that the case? I mean, that sounds like just a tremendous magnitude. I mean, 1 out of 3 firefighters is not going to be, seriously injured on the job, but to get cancer really shows the magnitude of this problem.
Well, statistically on this call right now, that's true.
I know it is in my department. Again, I just saw something about the absorption rate is higher given the higher ambient temperature or temperatures in a fire. Again, that would kind of support my belief that when you're operating in hot weather and your pores are open and you're sweating, the sweat's coming out, but the contaminants are going in. And again, the incidence of brain and testicular cancer on my job are absolutely off the chart, and it is very frightening.
I think the one thing that's going to be very interesting about this bill, and a lot of people complain about money and the other problems with it, is you look at something like the NFL, which is a big, big business and all that. But with the concussions now, where they knew what was going on and didn't do things, and I think the fire service is going to have to start spending money or look at the possibility of a class action lawsuit from members because they weren't doing enough. I mean, and there were organizations doing a lot to protect us, but I think the threat, the possibility of legal action is going to drive more places, like Darrell said, to get a second set of gear, to get the additional hoods, to put the baby wipes on the rigs and everything else. Because if you know this is happening to your people and don't do anything, it's almost like a shame on you. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this starts to happen. As we said, the 1 in 3, just on this phone call with the number of people who have had a cancerous thing, I know I have a precancerous thing. I know Bobby has it. So it's just the stuff that we have here now, and to protect ourselves, we have to have that personal responsibility, and you have to drive the organization to make organizational changes. And I think that's a huge, huge thing, to get them to try to do the right things, to supply the tools we need to help protect ourselves. Not everybody's going to be able to bag their gear and throw it up on a rig out of the crew cab and everything else, even though that would be perfect in a perfect world. Go back to a new set of gear with all your stuff is bagged on the rig and nobody's breathing any of that stuff in as it's off gas and back to the firehouse. That would be great if we could do it, but we have to start taking some measures.
And I think that Brian brought up that a lot of these measures do not cost a lot of money. Go ahead, Darrell.
I was just thinking, we don't work in a perfect environment or a perfect world, but I think the things that we're mentioning today are reasonable measures. There's some days we would need 4 sets of gear. We can't do a complete decontamination after every fire in some of the areas that we're working. So every company in the city would be out. But we can do some reasonable measures, such as taking showers and washing your gear after each job, and educating our new people, and wearing your mask when you can wear the mask, and taking some reasonable steps. But to treat the entire city as just a ball of cancer that, you know, could get to the point of being unreasonable. And a lot of the steps that are taken to prevent things such as cancer are going to help prevent other problems. We still know heart attacks are the leading cause of death. You know, leading a healthy lifestyle, you know, lowering your alcohol intake, you know, exercising, losing weight. These things are going to help also fight that tremendous difficult battle of beating cancer if you are unfortunate enough to come down with it.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes, folks, and I just want to wrap things up. If everybody would like to have a closing statement, and I'll finish up here. Bobby, anything?
Well, I would highly recommend that everybody takes a look at this article by Dr. Horn on page 55 of the September edition. And interestingly enough, just on the opposite page is an ad from our good friends at Key Fire Hose for their pencil line, their wildland firefighting line, their 1061 line, which is a great product. So again, thank you to Key Hose. To everybody on the call, and Daryl, I love you, and you know that, and I think you're a brilliant firefighter. But in '71, when I was a kid, just looking at this profession, getting involved and volunteering and such, they said, well, that's so unreasonable to imagine that everybody would have an air pack. And then I remember guys saying, boy, it would be so unreasonable for everybody to, you know, go on air at the door. You know, you should only air up when things got bad. Well, I would kind of like to see this group and a lot of you listening out there. I think someday we will have enough gear so we can change after every call, and just like we change out air bottles. We have them now. It'll just take time, and it'll take a leadership, and it'll take a mindset. But I also think there's something that didn't come up on today's call that I'd like you to think about. Where are you packing up? I get sent literally hundreds of photos every week from all around the world from us fighting fires. And I see firefighters in buckets above fires without masks. I see firefighters standing next to the burning structure without masks. I think we need to start to think of the fire ground much like we think of our hazmat scenes, and identify that area, say within, I don't know, 15 feet, 30 feet, whatever you think is appropriate for that fire, as the kill zone. If you get any closer to the fire than that without your air pack on, you're in a kill zone where you can breathe something that's going to kill you. It's going to drop you like third period French. So I just think that is something I'd like to see this group and everybody out there listening dedicate themselves to. Let's start talking about packing up, maybe at the rig, and then walking to the door rather than putting your mask on at the door, where we know a lot of these gases are coming out now. Part of the study that we just completed down in Champaign, where some of this information came from, Champaign, Illinois, with Dr. Horn, was the contaminated area around the fire scene. And it was contaminated around the fire scene. Now, that's going to change due to ambient temperature, barometric pressure, all kinds of different variables. But we know that just like heat, it's a high concentration to a low concentration, and some of these gases, these carcinogenic gases, are heavier than air. So, and some are lighter, and we're going above the fire in buckets. We're going above the roof on buckets. We're putting our masks on top of the roof, and we're inhaling this stuff. So, I don't know, just another thought to throw out there, another way to protect ourselves. And yeah, it's different, and I think we can do more, and we have to do more, and it's going to change. And I heard from our friends on FE Talk about we're a small volunteer department. One of the things that we were looking at that study was how effective is the detoxing and the different methodologies for decontaminating your gear on scene. And the evidence isn't analyzed yet as to which was the most effective, or if any of them were effective at all. So I can't give you a definitive answer on that. But what I can tell you is that the people from NIOSH who did that part of the study for us while we were down there, I was watching them go over to pick up the gear, and this was just from the pallets and straw fires, and they put on Tyvek suits and respirators before they picked up our gear. Now, I'm not the smartest guy on this call, and I'm no Columbo, but that would be a clue. If really, really smart people who know about germs and carcinogens and all that good stuff We're wearing Tyvek suits and gloves and respirators to pick up our gear. Think about it.
Yeah, well spoken. We're going to close this out.
We got enough time, Bill. We can go a little over. Let these guys have.
Okay.
This is
Very
important.
good, boss. Yeah, because we do have a lot. This is a very.
I'll pay the extra. Just keep going.
Okay, Brian. Thank you so much again. Short notice. This was just this morning, and it is quite still morning for you. A couple of closing thoughts, sir.
Thank you. Again, it's a privilege to be amongst all of you. I'm really pleased with this conversation. It's just nice to see that the paradigm shift of the fire service as it relates to cancer is certainly changing. You make a difference. Company officers, whether you're a rookie firefighter or a chief officer, you make a difference. Most of the issues with fire cancer prevention are leadership issues, and I encourage all of you to take advantage of that and be aware of all the things that we are subjected to that we may have not been subjected to 20 years ago. Our website is www.fcsn.net. I encourage you to go to that website. The white paper's there and some other resources that you might be able to use for your organizations. I'm happy to answer questions. My email is bfrieders, F-R-I-E-D-E-R-S, @fcsn.net. And I look forward to seeing all of you at the gala on November 7th at the Westin Bonaventure in Los Angeles. So thanks a lot for having me. It was a pleasure meeting all of you, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future.
Bobby, when we archive this Hangout today, can we put that website up somewhere preceding or at the end of the Hangout where people can avail themselves to it?
Absolutely. It'll be done.
I didn't get a chance to write it down. Okay, real
Absolutely.
good.
Absolutely.
Good. Clark, any closing comments there? Good looking.
Yes, Captain. I'd just like to say right now we have a captain on our job who is watching this Hangout, and he's in an isolation room. He just started radiation for thyroid cancer. And he discovered his thyroid cancer because my agency put on a class when they introduced the HOOD program that I spoke about. They put on a class, described all the types of cancers, some of the symptoms we should be looking for, and this guy realized, hey, wait a minute, I have some of those symptoms. And then so he did some of his own research, went to his doctor, diagnosed with stage 3 thyroid cancer, and went in for emergency surgery, had his thyroid removed, and now he has just started radiation. This was just in the past month this happened. So the program worked. Our program worked, and it was a combination of what my agency did and then his own research and his own personal responsibility to take care of himself. And so, again, it's up to us, guys. It is up to us to take care of ourselves on this. So I'm not going to say his name, but he knows who he is, and I just wish the best out there. But we are moving in the right direction. The U.S. Fire Service moving in the right direction with this. Thank you for inviting me today, guys.
Okay, real good. Dan, any closing comments?
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be amongst this collective group, and I think Brian touched on it. We can never underestimate the influence that the company officer and chief officer has. By far, the most important asset we have on the fire ground is our people. $1 million tower truck, an engine company, they are replaceable, but our people are not. And I think with all the information we get from Brian's group and we get from science, we just can't let common sense decisions that are supported by science and medical facts be hindered by foolish traditions. And it's hard to break those bad behaviors. We've been conditioned to them. But as I said before, I look at our recruits coming out now. They have not been conditioned with these behaviors of, the level of saltiness is going to define how experienced you are, what your gear looks like. They exercise common sense because, as Chief Halton said, if someone had to be in a Tyvek suit, probably means it's some pretty bad stuff. So it's always a struggle, especially for our company officers, because typically they have a little more time than the newest firefighters, but the common sense decisions shouldn't be hindered by a foolish tradition. We're given the information. Now we have to take something and do something with it positive. And each one of those things that was outlined that came in that white paper really costs nothing. So it really starts with the company officer, and they can be the role model to start this trend change we're looking for. So thanks, guys. Always great talking.
Daryl, any closing comments?
Yeah, a couple things just to summarize, but if you're in the position to educate people, I think someone asked about, do we educate people in the drill tower recruit school? I think that needs to happen more. to have talks like this in recruit school, so we're starting off on the right foot. A lot of times when people aren't doing the right thing, it's just from a lack of communication and a true understanding of why some of these things are important. We talked a lot about the preventing, by washing gear and things like that. We didn't use the term early detection, but I'm happy to hear some people have an annual physical. We have a terrific annual physical too, which has also detected cancer early for some of our members. They do blood work and hearing and everything else. If your department unfortunately is not doing that, negotiate for it. If you're unable to get it in negotiations, take steps to help yourself and make an annual physical with your doctor. The faster this stuff is caught, the more likely you are to survive it. Just continue having safe practices in the firehouse on the emergency scenes, and if you do come down with any diagnosis of cancer, get in touch with that firefighter support network. One thing that wasn't mentioned is they have a mentorship program where they will put you in touch with someone that's suffering from a similar or same type of cancer, so you don't have to be alone going through this, right? But that's it. It was nice chatting with you guys.
Daryl, you brought a lot to the table. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations on your promotion to captain. Captain Mike, any closing comments, sir?
Yeah, I just, listen, the macho stuff that we did in the past, the stuff that we thought made us cool, made us look cool, everything else, yeah, it made you look cool, except when you're laying in a hospital on oxygen, withering away. I would look pretty crappy at 110 pounds, okay? Listen, you want to protect yourself. You want to do what I call the Star Trek retirement, okay? You want to live long and prosper. And that is done by protecting yourself now. So protect yourself now because you know the hazards of what we do. And that's a good way to be able to make sure you live long for your family. Anybody going through it now, God bless you. We will think about you and pray for you. And hope everything works out. And thank you again for all of our folks on here. Thank Keith Firehose. Thank Bobby Halton and Penwell and Fire Engineering for sponsoring this. And my partner, Bill Gustin, thank you.
Okay, I think we can close it out then. With that, that was closing. Would you like me to finish it with anything else? Are we still on?
We're still on, Billy.
Okay, there is something, Bobby. I do have to ask you. Yesterday, when I was looking at about this tragedy in Kansas City, I Googled their local, the Kansas City, Missouri firefighters local. They do have a fund set up for those two brothers that were killed. And I'm going to ask you, Bobby, if you can't possibly, along with the Cancer Support Network website, if we could possibly get that up on along with to accompany the archive version of this this Google Hangout.
Be more than happy to do it.
Okay. All right, fellas. I thank you so much. Again, our thoughts and prayers go out to our brothers in Kansas City, Missouri. We're never going to make this job entirely safe, but those gentlemen paid the ultimate sacrifice, and it's something that we're just going to have to accept. This job will never be 100% safe, but things like cancer prevention, we can make great strides to make it a lot safer than it is right now. God bless everybody. We'll be talking to everybody next month. Stay safe.